Spencer, thanks so much for coming on the Grow Dental podcast.
My pleasure. It's good to be here, Luke. Thanks.
Definitely. Tell everyone just a little bit about yourself, where you're from, your background, and what you're up to now.
So for the past few years, I have been the CEO and was owner of a marketing agency in the dental implant space. And I created a framework that I used with the clients that I had while I was doing that. And we created a Millionaires Club, and that Millionaires Club the framework resulted in hundreds of doctors joining. In fact, it was about every 8 days I'd have another doctor join the Millionaires Club at the time. And so I'm excited to, I got out of there. I exited that business. And what I realized is that it wasn't just about the marketing. It was actually about the systems and processes and the whole framework being put in place in order to be successful. So I'm now out coaching, consulting doctors, helping them put those pieces in place so they can be successful and avoid hopping from agency to agency, hoping to get results. So that's what I'm doing. And I'm excited to share with you today that framework and talk a little bit about that.
So maybe we can start with the economy. And just kind of, I think most people kind of know by now, but let's hit that. So obviously COVID happened, a ton of money was printed, and people started buying stuff. And I think dentistry, and this is probably true with a lot of industries, for the most part, everyone had their best year coming off of COVID. So late 2020, 2021, and then by 2022, probably like midway through, things really started to kind of decline. Not like a walk off the cliff for most people, but just a gradual decline from mid 22 through 23 through 24 until now. And so just through that, from going to printing, spending, decline, inflation, interest rates going up, debt growing higher. I think I saw a headline the other day that there was more, what do you call it when people default on their car payment? Repossessions, yeah, than ever before, or since 2008 numbers. So give me your take on that and what's that created within dentistry.
Yeah, well, I was watching it, trying to take care of a bunch of clients at the agency that I was running at the time. I was the CEO of that agency at the time. And people were just coasting. It was pretty easy for most doctors to come in, get some cases in, to do pretty well with themselves, right?
Right.
And then all of a sudden we started to notice this. Doctors just not closing as many cases as they used to. And it was like slowly cost per lead started to go up, and it was costing more to acquire. And we were all sitting there scratching our heads because it was still kind of early on and nobody really understood what was going on. And then it wasn't until later when you could see the inflation, all of a sudden everybody started talking about inflation and how it was affecting the economy. And then we were like, oh, okay, you can't inject $5 trillion into the economy and not have inflation catch up at some point.
Right.
When you put all that money into all that quantitative easing, everybody had money being put into their bank accounts and costs were low. And it was just like money was pouring out of everybody's pockets. And so they're like, I'm going to go get my teeth fixed. I'm going to go buy a car too. And I'm going to do all these things. Right. And then finally, though, it starts catching up. And you see these people, and we were scratching our heads, and Dave Rohr, who's the CEO of Proceed Finance, was the one who was like, Spencer, this is what's happening. He pointed it out to me. He's like, look, because I was calling him up and I'm like, what the heck's going on, Dave?
Right.
And he's
Eggs
just
went
like,
to $8.50. So yeah.
Inflation's gone up. The Fed increased the interest rate to combat it, which slowed down inflation.
Right.
But when you increase the interest rate, what happens? Like all of a sudden it costs more to borrow money.
Spending goes down.
And if you think about, like, this is where we have to get really clear, because who buys full arch of dental implants? Now, there's a lot of people who do, but the average person buying is a blue collar worker earning 40 to 70, maybe 80K a year, nearing retirement age, hasn't been to a dentist in 7 to 10 years.
Right.
So these people, when you think about that income and where they are, and with eggs suddenly costing so much and milk and gas and everything going up, like they just simply can't afford like they used to.
Right.
And then to borrow money, suddenly it costs more to borrow money, and they find themselves at a point where financially they just can't afford it. When it costs more to borrow money, that means your payment's going to be bigger, and you can't work that payment into your budget because your budget's tight.
Yeah, housing went up. I mean, if you're going to sell your house because you have more equity in it, it really doesn't do anything, because then you have to go buy a house where, you know, it went up $100,000. So, yeah, I mean, everybody's just kind of feeling it. I think at the same time, and this happened with orthodontics, right? Like more and more dentists started doing aligners. So then a big competitor for orthodontist on the aligner side is dentist, not other orthodontist, right? And then the same thing happens with implants, where you know, more and more dentists are trying to get into this because it's higher ticket. It can provide more options, but you know, a lot more competition coming into the space. So then it dilutes the quality of patients that do want to move forward.
It's like the pie shrunk and more mouths wanted a bite of the pie.
Yeah. Yep.
And I'll say one other thing that caused the pie to shrink as well. You know, everything costs more. The cost of living, so everything goes up because of inflation. The interest rate goes up. But then what happened is that people got used to that money being put into their bank accounts and how much money was flowing through the economy. They got really used to it. And so when inflation went up and everything started costing more, rather than decreasing, you know, kind of pulling back on their, you know, the way they were living their lives, what they did is they started going into debt. And over the last couple years, we've seen a major spike in inflation, or not in inflation, but a major spike in consumer debt. And when debt to income ratios get out of whack, FICO scores drop. So what happened at first, we saw consumers pull back simply because they couldn't afford it. And then we started to see on the back end, those that seemingly could even potentially afford it not qualify for financing because their debt to income was out of whack.
Right.
And so fewer people could get approvals. Even if they had the cash flow, they still couldn't get approvals because their FICO scores had dropped. And so it's been a real struggle. And then what happens is that the average dentist will go out, sign up with an agency, run ads, not close cases, and then they jump to the next agency because they're like, well, somebody else has got to get me golden leads, right? And they just keep bouncing from agency to agency to agency, never having success. And here's the thing, is that in spite of this economic situation, which feels dire, right? It feels like throwing your arms up. In spite of that, there are people who are having tremendous success right now, like incredible success. And it's because they're following a certain framework. And so if you follow the framework for success, you will have success in spite of the economy. And I think of it kind of like Coke or Pepsi, right? Like, I think in any given market, there's probably 2 to 5 practices, the Clear Choices and Nuvias included, right, out there that are going to dominate this high ticket space, this implant space in any given market. And if you follow the recipe, you can be one of those offices. You can be a practice that does that and own that space and be the Coke or Pepsi for your area. And if you don't, you'll end up bottom shelf, great value brand at the bottom of the shelf, picking up onesies, twosies here or there, and just not having the success that you want. It comes down to following the recipe for success.
Well, let's talk about that because, as you know, we've started to enter the multi-specialty dental space more and more. And, we have always worked with dentists, but as we worked with more orthodontists, maybe a friend or family member or spouse or cousin, hey, they're a periodontist or an oral surgeon or an endodontist or peds and ortho. And so now we're growing a lot more in multi-specialty dental. And I really think that's kind of the future of private practice, because look at DSOs and OSOs, they're doing the same thing, right? You have one of the largest OSOs now building a oral surgery DSO. And so more private practices are doing this, where does it make sense to go buy a oral surgery practice or bring in general dentistry? And that's an interesting concept too, is kind of a tangent of dental clearance is one of the biggest reasons why people can't start. Well, if you have a dentist in your practice, how easy is it to build a better workflow? Now, people are kind of scared of the referrals, but the traditional referral method, it's so hard to keep up with anyway. So it's going to be interesting.
It's starting to dry up
Yeah.
as more GPs are going out and getting trained.
Right.
So.
Exactly. And I mean, I've talked to a lot of GPs lately who have brought in an orthodontist on per diem, 2 or 3 days a week. And so, yeah, this whole thing is happening, and there's a lot of change. There's also a lot of change on the tech side. But, in talking to more and more dentists doing implants, it almost seems like they're largely kind of experimenting with it, right? Like you have the premier choice. You have the people who have been doing this for years. They're really good at it. Their team is trained on it, right? So that's a big one. Like if your team doesn't understand the workflow really well, and then you have this kind of class below where people are trying to learn this, trying to implement it. I was just talking to somebody the other day. They had their best year in 24 because they did the most implants, but then their team got burned out, and now she's having to replace her team, and she didn't have the best process in place for high ticket. And so she's kind of having to like rebuild the whole thing and had to stop and pull back, and now her numbers have fallen. But it just seems like a lot of people are wanting to get into it for obvious reasons, but it's kind of putting the cart before the horse. And I would imagine, building the right workflow first, getting your team trained on it. It's just like, an orthodontist who's going to bring in a new modality. Like you have to get everything on the back end done first before you work on the front end and drive patients in. But that doesn't always happen. So maybe let's break that down. And how do you actually build the workflow first and get everything dialed in your systems and your processes? And what's that look like on the back end?
Well, and I can tell you, you saying that just reminds me of a story where a dentist came, signed up. At the time we were running ads for them, and on the day we were ready to launch the ads was the very first time that his team had ever heard that we would be doing this. And he had not been marketing for implants previous to that. He just went and signed up and was like, I want to sell more implants. And so we're ready to launch. And the team's on the call, and the team's finding out for the first time that they're going to be calling leads and booking people into appointments and doing all of this.
They're freaking
Needless
out.
to say, it did not go well. Nobody was prepared. Nobody had been prepared for it. And so a much better way to do that is to follow to obviously plan and prepare, just like you're saying. So let me tell you. So back in the day, I had a millionaires club, and which every time a doctor earned $1 million through following the framework that I created, then we would, induct them into this millionaires club and celebrate with them. And We had hundreds of doctors come into this millionaires club because they followed the framework that we taught, right? And this is how they were successful in spite of the trends that we were seeing. Every doctor that followed this was successful, no matter what, no matter the economy, no matter where they were still successful. I call it the freedom framework. And the reason I call it the freedom framework is because, well, I also call the patient like an implant patient. I call them a freedom patient. Any high ticket patient, I call a freedom patient. And the reason I do that is because if you can get more of that freedom patient, then it equates to more freedom in your life, because it's typically more of the type of work that you enjoy doing.
Mm-hmm.
As a dentist, when you do an implant case, especially a full arch, and a grown man comes to you crying, thanking you and hugging you, that's a big difference from somebody, getting their cavity fixed who's like, I hate coming to the dentist, right?
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't want to see you. So it's more of the type of work that people enjoy doing. It's more rewarding. It's financially more rewarding. You can do fewer cases and earn the same amount of money, or work less, do fewer days. It affords more lifestyle. And so it really just opens up a lot more freedoms for you if you can acquire more of that patient. So I've done with the freedom patient. It's the freedom framework that will get you more of the freedom patient, right?
Mm.
And so it's basically these 5 things. There's the first is a foundation of clinical knowledge, right? You have to be able to know how to do this. If you only know how to do single implants, go get the training, go get the knowledge you need, and train your team so that you can do these larger type cases that will open up more freedom for you. The second is a lot of what you were talking about: workflows, systems, processes. And really, I call it leadership, a foundation of leadership. Because if you take ownership and you lead out and you start running your practice like a business, and you hire and you hold your team accountable and you lead your team by helping put systems and processes in place and holding them accountable, then you'll be successful.
Mm-hmm.
And any doctor that doesn't do that or neglects doing that is really not leading their team to success. And for example, you sign up on a program, you sign up with Luke. Luke starts providing leads for you. And instead of take ownership and make it a priority in your practice, you hand it over to Barbara and you're like, all right, Barb, you're in charge of this. Good luck. And you dust off your hand, wash your hands of it, and you just go and do your stuff. Barb's overwhelmed. Barb's already got a lot on her plate. Barb's like, I don't really care about this, okay, it's my job to show up and do my work, but they're never going to care about it as much as you care about it.
Mm-hmm.
And so it suddenly fails. Nobody's held accountable to doing their jobs. It's all, it's more work than what they were already doing. And so they don't really put their heart in it. They don't put their effort into it. And then it fails, right? And you're not getting a return on your investment. So you blame Luke. And actually the problem wasn't Luke. The problem was you didn't take leadership and ownership of it. And so that's a critical piece of it. And then on top of that, there's 3 things. If you have those 2 foundations in place, there's 3 things to grow and scale. And the first, and the thing that attracted me to Luke, for years, I've been tracking Luke. I watched him in the orthodontia space, and I felt like I had a kindred spirit out there. As I watched you, I followed your stuff, got your emails, because you were constantly talking about authority, building brand, your messaging, what you say is, and how critical that is, and what you say and how you communicate. And so I call it brand authority, building your brand, differentiating yourself. When implants or orthodontics or whatever it is becomes more of a commodity because there's more people doing it, you have to look and sound different. You have to be different, and you need more authority. You need more social proof. You need all of that stuff that's built up. So that's the first pillar. This is the thing that's going to get people to like and trust your solution to their problem, and then like and trust you as the provider of that solution.
Mm-hmm.
And this messaging gets disseminated in your marketing and into your team when they're communicating, when they're on the phone with people, when they are in a consult with someone. This is the messaging that's going to get, distributed across there. So you got to build that up. The second thing is having a closing system. Somebody who can, well, first off, it's a patient journey. How do we take a patient from a click on the internet or a phone call coming in, right? A view on the TV or wherever, they see this, they take action through a phone call into a consult, into the chair, saying yes, financially approved and moving forward with treatment.
Mm-hmm.
And how do you do that consistently, repeatedly? Because you've got a system in there, a nice patient journey that will consistently result in paying patients. And then a team, you build a team around that who will follow that process consistently to make sure they're doing everything they're supposed to when they're supposed to, so that person's able to go through that journey smoothly all the way through consistently, and that they're held accountable, right? That's your closing system. And then finally, your marketing system. What marketing channels, what ponds are you casting your line in? How much budget should you be putting in? Are you holding it accountable? How are you holding that accountable so that you can get more people raising their hand and saying, I'm interested in your services, and entering into that patient journey and going the distance, right?
Yeah.
And these are the three things that I have been, those three pillars built on that foundation are what will set you up for success in spite of our economic situation and in spite of the increased competition.
Mm-hmm. So let's break some of those down. And the first part, before we got into the three pillars, you were talking about training and workflow. How long do you think it takes when you decide, hey, I'm going to do this, and this has to be a focus for the practice, higher ticket versus just bread and butter dentistry? How long do you think it should take to get the training and build out the workflow with the team?
I would say it depends on how much education you already have under the belt.
Sure. Yep.
To go from singles to a full arch won't take as long.
Right.
6 to 12 months.
Yeah, because there's all these different techniques, and there's people who host their own courses, and whether it be in office, and so you see it firsthand, cadaver work, whatever it is, you can go to these courses. But I was just at one, and everybody's talking about different methods and different courses you can go to learn this method from this expert who is the one who has it dialed in. And so, yeah, I think that's about accurate, is like 6 months. And I don't think you can really piecemeal it together, which seems to be what a lot of people are doing. Well, I'll go to one course, but then, I kind of know what to do, but I'm not really going to thoroughly train my team yet, but let's turn on ads. And it becomes this cluster, where that's where I like to talk about. And I just spoke at a conference yesterday, so it's fresh on my mind, strategic thinking versus tactical. Tactical is, what do we need to do today? Tactical can sometimes be reactive because you're putting fires out. Tactical is operational things, right? Strategy and strategic thinking, strategic planning is zooming out and looking down the timeline kind of from a third-party perspective. So where am I now? Where do I want to be? And realistically, through planning, how long is it going to take and what are the milestones? And so you could break it into like 90-day sprints. You could use something like EOS, or there's tons of strategic planning frameworks to build it out. But it's not just like a month or two. And that story that you told where the doctor, you guys were ready to go, and then the team's just finding out, that's happened to us dozens of times. And, you even check on the call. All right, so like this call's to get your team bought in, and they already know, right? And, oh yeah, whatever it may be in their mind, they're on a different page than the team. And so it's Alex Hermosi said this, for anybody watching who knows him, young guy, very dynamic speaker, entrepreneur, is now acquiring a lot of different businesses, said, you've got to build it back to front. And so it's even like with HIP, the first couple of years, the marketing that you're talking about seeing, that none of that existed. All we did was obsess over the framework. And then once we knew we could really predictably generate results for all different types of practices, I mean, we were working in pain, bariatrics, general surgery, orthopedics, med spa, plastics, right? It was working for all of them. Then let's dial in our messaging, our sales, our positioning. And then we decided to really focus on orthodontics because that's where we just had a lot of momentum. And then with marketing, it really helped, right? Because we didn't have to market to 10 different or 12 different verticals. And at the same time, insurance was falling apart. So it was pretty easy to select a more cash pay or elective type of industry with a short sales process for the most part. So I would say the same thing to a practice or any business. If you're trying to, and sometimes this can work, build the plane and fly it at the same time sometimes. Yeah. But you better have something that's really stable, that's generating profit somewhere else, so you can kind of do this R&D. And a lot of practices just don't have that. They're just looking for the shiny object. Oh, everybody's going into full arch. I better do that. And it's like, okay, yeah, but let's do the strategic planning first.
Even if you have all of that in place, doctor's been trained, you're doing cases internally, and that's it, right? So I had a client that was a doctor. Internally, they were converting patients into full arch. They were getting that, and they had their workflows down. But the doctor was just absent. He was like, I don't want to have to take the time to worry about this. And so he just went and signed up, and then again, handed it over to his office manager to say, okay, go make this happen for me.
Yeah.
And they just were like bobbing along the bottom. One of his friends was crushing it, like a few million a year in implant revenue. And he was like, 300,000 or something like that,
right,
in revenue. He finally went, and I got to remember, it's the Extreme Ownership book,
the Jocko. I was just talking about
Jocko
that with somebody
Willink.
else. Yeah.
His friend who was crushing it was like, hey, why don't you go read this book? So he read it, and he's like, it's me. I'm not showing up. I'm not taking ownership for this. And so he started holding a daily huddle with his team, so that the team knew this is our emphasis. This is what's important. He was asking them questions. Hey, how are we doing? What are the metrics, every day? And the office manager still managed it on a day-to-day, ran it, but he was checking in and holding them all accountable to it. And it like, poof, they shot off. They just rocketed up and started crushing it and have not stopped since. And so that, once you, I love what you're saying, the strategy, you get it in place, but even after you've gotten it in place, if you don't take ownership and lead the team, you will still not be successful. It's such a critical component, foundational component.
Well, leadership is so interesting because a lot of people think, and I think largely it's taught by people who want to sell books and curriculum and courses, is that leadership is like you are kind of the cheerleader for the team, but then you check out. And so, then you don't have to be there or be involved. And I've never really seen that work. It's a desirable concept, right? Because the team can do it. But the team, I believe, wants to see the owner in it with them. You know, because otherwise a lot of stuff starts to happen, resentment, talking, oh, he's never here, or she's never here, and, she wants us to do this, but she's the one or he's the one making all the money or whatever it may be. But when you're there with them and you're kind of in the trenches, so to speak, maybe not all the times, but enough, you can really get that buy-in, and you can also be aware of what's happening. Where do they need mentorship? Where do they need management? Where do they need coaching? But if you're not aware of those things, then you just still have a very leaky colander, or a very sometimes apathetic team of just, so to your point, you could have them trained, but if you're not leading them properly, and leadership can look a lot different too, based on the culture, based on your goals. There's not just one style. Like I used to think leadership was like being Nick Saban, but that works really well for sports. I don't know if that works really well inside of a business,
Right.
because like you're largely a lot of times degrading people, which can work really well for alpha male athletes. Doesn't really work inside of a business all that well, at least not most of the time. Maybe you can
I have a client.
Yeah.
Or I had a client before I exited. The client was phenomenal surgeon, like phenomenal. And the only thing that was holding him back from having success is his churn. And it was because you would get on a call with him and you could see that he was condescending to his team. And nobody wanted to work in those conditions. So he really wasn't leading his team because of the way he was treating the other, treating them. So churn was high. He'd get somebody in 2 or 3 months later, they'd go. And he was just constantly having to train, hire and train, wasting so much time and money on that. When if he had taken, a less critical approach to his team, still hold them accountable, but in a respectful way, I think he could have had way more success than what he was having.
For sure. Yeah. I think that's a good book for everybody, Extreme Ownership. And, it also kind of shows that everybody can be a leader to some degree. And it depends on your role, how you can help lead others. So everybody has a part to play. Everybody can lead, but then there's hierarchy, right? And you have someone who can cast the vision, and then you have someone over that who can manage. But everybody can kind of help inspire and push the entire team forward. So that's a good book. And I think
it doesn't have to be like just simply, one of the best things that I've seen is hold a daily huddle. And
right.
Okay, maybe you're already holding a
connected.
daily huddle, but I'm talking about like a closing huddle or sales huddle, if you will, right?
Exactly.
Where you've got your core team. Okay, I want to sell more implants. Okay, here's my appointment setter, my treatment coordinator, my office manager, me. And every day we're going to take 5 minutes in the morning, and I'm just going to ask some critical questions. How many appointments did we get set yesterday? How many people did we have on the schedule yesterday? How many showed up?
Right.
How many people closed and are moving forward with treatment?
Yeah.
Just like that. And if you do that with your team, all of a sudden, every day they start showing up and they start paying attention to it and making it more of a priority because you're making it a priority, even in 5 minutes. And if you can't be on the huddle, have them text you those numbers or put them in a spreadsheet and text you to say, hey, I updated the metrics.
Yeah.
It's just that little bit of accountability goes so far, and that will transform your practice.
So we were talking about this, I think it was 2 nights ago, and a dentist was asking, how should I incentivize my team? Because right now I only have a team bonus. So if we hit a goal, everybody wins. It's kind of the concept of like everybody gets a trophy. You get a car, you get a car. And that's fine, I think, if that team bonus is small, if you want to do something like that. And you should bonus based on what you actually want to see happen. And it should be the team members driving that. So this particular dentist giving the other dentist advice said, whoever closes the case, here's the spiff or, bonus program that I unveiled to my team. So if you close a case within this amount, it's, $35. If it's within this amount, 50, 100, 200, 250, tiered all the way up. And
Mm-hmm.
so if the patient was already in the clinic and maybe hygiene explained the case or an associate explained the upsell, they could get the bonus, not just the TC, because the TC may not be with the patient. So is bonusing based on the results that you want to see ultimately to hit the goal. And then if there's a team bonus, base that on, maybe gross production for the month or whatever that might look like. And that's okay too. And sometimes, he said, sometimes we even incentivize them in some months with something other than money. Maybe it's Amazon wish list or something like that, just to change it up and see the dynamics. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I think that's a big piece of it too, because everybody thinks about what's in it for me. And this goes back to something I shared when I was speaking. For a scheduling role, I don't really care about how many appointments they book total. I care about how many people they get to show up to the appointment, shown
Mm-hmm.
appointments. And so bonus for
Mm-hmm.
shown appointments, because that's really the KPI that you want to see. It's not
Mm-hmm.
total appointments, shown appointments.
Mm-hmm.
Because then if I
Mm-hmm.
know my conversion rate is 80% or 75%, I can do the math and it's more predictable. But if I'm running
Right.
it off of just booked appointments, well, I don't know how many people are going to show. The other thing with that, and we could probably talk all day, is how many phone calls are you missing? You're going and spending all this money on marketing, and we've all heard it before. Yeah, the last marketing group didn't work, and then I tried this because they were a referral and they were supposed to be really good, and it didn't work. And it's like, yeah, have you even looked at your own metrics?
Mm-hmm.
How many missed phone calls? What is your conversion rate? Like, when's the last time you ran a reactivation campaign? So all the treatment planning you've done, who has not moved forward? How do you work that list? How do you segment
Mm-hmm.
that? So there's all this opportunity, but people just want to, well, just spend more on marketing. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
well, marketing's only going to work to the degree that everything else has already worked. So if you're already rocking it, marketing can do really well. But if you have this massive leaky bucket, marketing's going to turn into the same thing. It's just going to be more water in the leaky bucket.
Yeah. You waste thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just tens of thousands of dollars down the drain doing that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, and that's what causes doctors to jump from agency to agency, hoping to find those golden leads when actually it's something internal
Mm-hmm.
going on in their practice,
Yeah, they already
So I love
existed.
that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's talk about this. And this is something I think that you are very specialized on. You have a lot of knowledge on your branding, your positioning, and with specifically with like full archer implants, your offer.
Mm-hmm.
And every ad I go and look at, it almost looks like the same ad. You
Mm-hmm.
know, is that good because everybody's doing it and it means it's working, or should I also be looking to maybe look at what's working and recognize that, but then differentiate myself to really stand out? What's that
Yeah.
look like?
Yeah. Why, if I'm a potential patient, why should I choose you over anybody else? And here's an interesting metric. The average person right now is doing 2 to 4 consultations.
Mm,
And so when you look at that, I mean, for one, you're one of how many ads out there? And then they're going to hone it
thousands.
down to 2 to 4,
Mm-hmm.
right? And out of those 2 to 4, they're going to go actually meet with these people in an office, and then they have to make a decision.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty intense. And so as implants become, I mean, we've already seen it on the clear aligner side, right? As implants become more of a commodity. I mean, think about it. Clear aligners there used to be like 2 Invisalign docs, and they would charge around 8,000 something for it.
Mm-hmm.
Today, Invisalign somewhere between 2 to 4K, right?
Mm-hmm.
In that range. And so with inflation, it's actually starting to go up a little bit, but in that, I've seen it up into the fives now again, but in that range, that's pretty common to see Invisalign. So how do you stand out in the marketplace? How do you, when, if implants become a commodity, how do you get them to choose you? And how do you still, how do you, if differentiation is just simply like, well, I'm going to charge you less, then it's just a race to the bottom, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like nobody wins. Like you're going to lose money on this. And so, how are you able to still have this be a profitable thing for your practice while still providing an excellent service at a great price for these people? That's worth all the value all around. And the question, so there's some simple ways to do that. And it's instead of differentiating on price, you differentiate. But by the way, for one, a little secret is if you are doing pricing, I would look at a couple big chains, national chains, and I would price just right below them,
Mm-hmm.
maybe a couple K below, in that range, because they'll do a lot of the marketing out there. And then if you're the second opinion, because they're going to go look for that second opinion. If you're the second opinion, you come in just underneath. It's a real win-win,
Mm-hmm.
all around.
And
So
they've done all the research to know kind of where's the sweet spot.
yeah,
Yeah.
and then so just position slightly below in your pricing. It's a great place to be in pricing. Don't don't rush down to the bottom of the barrel. There's no need for that if you build your value perception. And so one of the ways you can do that is instead of differentiate on price, differentiate on what you offer, on the actual delivery of the service. And what I mean by that is like an easy way to do that is to brand your smile. So I know a doctor who came out with the perfect smile. And when you buy a full arch of implants from him, you're not buying a full arch of implants because everybody sells full arch of implants. Instead, you're buying this trademark term of the perfect smile. Another one has the dream smile, and then there's a bunch of others out there who have come up with this, and they create value brand. Like think of kind of like Highbridge, if you're familiar with Highbridge.
Mm-hmm.
It's like creating value around your unique smile, so if you're going to get a dream smile, it's going to be, we deliver dream smiles, these beautiful smiles, custom made with dental implants, da 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 da. That's a simple, easy way to build value perception. In marketing, we call it productization because a service is really difficult for the average human brain to perceive value in because it's a promise of something that's going to happen. You can't see it. You can't go to the store. It's not like a fruit or vegetable that you can pick up and know if it's ripe, or an article of clothing that you can put on and see if it fits. You can't do that with a service. It's just like, I promise you, I'm going to give you a pretty smile. And that's like, well, what? How is this going to work? There's all these unknowns. It's
Mm-hmm.
vague. It's out there. It's this thing in the future that you haven't received yet, and yet I'm going to hand over money for this thing I haven't received yet
Mm-hmm.
and can't really see. So in marketing, we call it productization, where you name it, you label it, and you describe it. And when you give it a name and you describe it, all of a sudden it becomes more concrete. It becomes more like a product in the mind of the consumer. And so that's what I mean. That's one way to go. The second thing that you can do that makes for really easy way to differentiate is on the doctor.
Mm-hmm.
So the doctor's credentials, I've placed X amount of implants already. I've been practicing for this many years. I'm a nationally recognized doctor because I'm a member of AAID or ICOI. I'm part of this national club. Therefore, I'm a nationally recognized doctor, or something like that, right? Like, there's ways to set the doctor apart as being that. I have a client that calls himself the Smile Architect. And so he's got his little trademark thing out there as the Smile Architect. And so when people come in, it's like, oh, he does such beautiful work that people refer to him as the Smile Architect. And that's the story that is told in his marketing and on the phone and in the consult, because he's so good at it that he people refer to him as the Smile Architect, right? And so that's his brand. We branded him. There's a doctor in Texas whose name is Dr. Berlin, and he has the Berlin smile. So he's kind of like branded his smile and himself together. That doesn't necessarily work if you are looking to sell your practice in the future, because the value is built around the doctor. But at the same time, it's a great strategy and a quick and fast way to build value and get people to like and trust you.
Right.
One other way, I'll share one other idea there, and it's simply to name your protocol. So you may have the same. Okay, so this is a fun story. I'll tell you really quick. So back in the 1920s, there was this company. In fact, even until just recently, they were around. It's called Schlitz Beer.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think they're around anymore. Anyway, Schlitz Beer in the 1920s, they were like number 8, I think, in national sales. And they hired this marketer, and he came in and he said, "How do you make your beer?" And they said, "Well, we take the hops and that's purified water, and we do all this stuff and we make the beer." He says, "Well, how does your competition make the beer?" "Well, they take the hops and the purified water and they do all this stuff too." You know, it's basically the same process.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, "But nobody talks about it." And so he started putting out marketing, advertising that said the reason why Schlitz beer tasted so good was because they used purified water in their process. And they quickly rose to number 1 in sales and were there for many years as the number 1 selling brand of beer. And I love that because everybody used purified water. They were the only ones who talked about it.
Mm-hmm.
And so
storytelling.
Yeah, if you come up with you can come up with yours, and maybe, I'm Spencer Walker, so maybe it's the Walker protocol.
Mm-hmm.
And it's how I do it. And maybe it's how everybody else does it. It doesn't matter. But because it's the way that I'm choosing to do it, it's now my protocol, how I do it, and I'm putting a name on it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the Walker protocol. It's my proprietary protocol that I use to consistently get beautiful smiles, right? I've developed this protocol to help me get beautiful smiles. And so that's another way to differentiate, because you can't get the Walker protocol down the street. Mm-hmm. Or the Berlin smile down the street, right? You can only get that if you come here. And mm-hmm. so it gives people a reason. Oh, wow, he's got this whole protocol. Well, that guy, because down the street, they're not going to talk about that. They're just going to go in and they're going to say, well, we do dental implants. If you want them, here you go. Here's the price. Here we go. Just like everybody else. And when they show up to you and you're going to say, hey, by the way, I don't know if you know this, but Dr. Walker is a nationally recognized doctor. He's part of an association, a national association, and viewed as part of that, an esteemed member. He's viewed as a nationally recognized doctor. And he's even developed his own protocol. It's mm-hmm. called the Walker Protocol that ensures consistently beautiful smiles, healthy and beautiful smiles. And his smiles are so great that people call them perfect smile. It's a dream smile, whatever. Those are already taken. Sorry, somebody already grabbed those out. But whatever, you could come up with it. Or people just call it the Walker smile now because mm-hmm. he creates such beautiful smiles that people just refer to him as the Walker smile. So if you want a Walker smile, come here, right?
I think part of it too is a lot of people get into that stuff, which is all really good, before they speak to the patient and their pain and problem. Mm-hmm. And when people do actually put the pain and problem in the ad, it's not very strong. It's like one thing, where really showing that you understand. And I do believe most dentists do, because they hear firsthand every day, what's the patient going through? Mm-hmm. What's their frustration? How is this affecting their confidence? How is this affecting quality time? How is this affecting their eating and, losing weight because they can't eat, or just frustration around foods in general. And when you can do that, and then you can also brand your system, when you can also add in a lot of credibility. So, treated over X number and, won this award, have this accolade, and 20 years of X, Y, and Z, and 500 5-star reviews, and you can kind of stack this whole value, and really kind of emotional stacking, because that gives people certainty. Mm-hmm. Then you can do what most people don't do, which most people, and I believe probably 90 to 98% of marketers, just purely marketers, are going to get wiped off the face of the planet by AI. Because all these platforms are going to allow you to do it better or just as good without the middleman. And so if you don't have somebody who really understands these things and can utilize the system better than the system's own AI, because it's only going to be so good, right? Like Facebook with one click in their AI, it's only going to be so good. But the person who can come in with a better strategy and say, here's how we're going to do it, and it's going to generate better results, here's how, and then I can prove it, that person can always have a job, whether it was like you were talking about back in the 20s, Madison Avenue and radio and billboard and then TV and now the internet and then now AI. Now I'm talking to maybe vetting your marketer, and are they just a button pusher or do they think strategically? Because all these ads look the same. And then you've got the same stuff as everybody else. And the thing is yes, it could generate results and you're still missing on all this other stuff we talked about. So you need to improve there. But what if you can really get stuff dialed in terms of systems, operations, and then align that with really dialed in marketing and patient acquisition and scheduling? And I mean, you can go as far as you want to go. What do you want to do? Do you want to open 10 practices? Do you want to get to a certain multiple and then sell to a DSO? You can do whatever you want to do at that point, but everything has to be dialed in.
Yeah. No, and that's the thing, is there is no one magic lever for targeting these freedom patients, as I call them, right? And that's, again, the hopping from agency to agency, hoping that one of these agencies is magically going to get you better leads. There is some truth to the nuance, to the quality of marketing that an agency can do. Not all of them are created equal by any means, but at the same time, at the end of the day, like if you find yourself hopping from agency to agency to agency, there might be, it's not just one big magic lever. There's something else going on. And it's this framework that we're talking about. Like, you need to hone in your messaging. Maybe you're not holding your team accountable. Maybe your team, maybe you've got the wrong people, because frequently it's, I've put this person into my TC role because she's great with patients, but maybe she doesn't actually know how to close them. Maybe she's really warm and friendly with them, but can't get them over their concerns or their worries. And so they just keep coming in and nobody's actually closed and moving forward, and maybe she's not the right person for that role. And if you put your wife in that role and now you have to fire her, I'm sorry, like that makes it really difficult. That happens a lot out there. But go find yourself somebody who actually has sales experience, who can help people overcome objections and concerns and can get somebody to say yes, not unethically, but just who understands people and their emotions and knows how to connect and then help them overcome their concerns and steer. And frequently that might be somebody outside of your practice, like in aesthetic sales or I don't know, something else, medical sales or something like that. Go hire them and then train them on dental, and you'll have way more success.
Yeah, that's a good point. To go back to what you were talking about right before that, and agency hopping, that's what we marketers call it. I would rather have tight systems and a really good team and workflow and just okay marketing, because
100%.
Then I'm going to retain everybody, right? And I'm going to be able to not leak everything that I'm getting. If I have poor systems and poor teams and great marketing, the retention's terrible, So there's just all this lost potential. And I think that's building on a house of cards, where then that starts to affect reviews and testimonials and word of mouth. And it's a means to an end. And I think most people are chasing the sexy, shiny object of marketing when they should be chasing the really tight systems, and maybe during that process being content with average marketing, right? And I mean, I'm not saying pick one or the other, but people are, and they're picking the shiny object instead of the firm foundation. So get the firm foundation first, and then scale and grow your marketing.
Yes, I always tell people that what you just said is 80% of their success.
Yeah,
Putting
100%.
the systems in place, hiring the right people, holding those people accountable is 80% of their success. And 20% is the marketing and determining your differentiation brand, you know?
Yeah.
So
The 80-20
all of it's
rule.
important, but it is literally 80% of your success to get that in place. And you can have mediocre marketing and still be incredibly successful. And then once you get that system down, then hop on with somebody who actually understands marketing really well, and like you guys do. And all of a sudden you'll just like blow it up. It's amazing what you can do in these economic conditions, in spite of the increased competition. This is how you become a Coke or Pepsi of your area.
I love that. Well, for people watching or listening, what's the best way for them to get a hold of you?
Yeah, go to my website, freedompatient.com.
freedompatient.com. Perfect. Thanks so much for coming on the Grow Dental podcast, Spencer. I really appreciate it. We'll have to have you back, and maybe next time in person.
My pleasure, man. Thank you.